Okay, so it's taking a little bit longer than I was expecting for Poison G to be delivered to Spotify, Apple Music, and other legacy streaming services. So let's, make another video. I don't want to do the Kickstarter campaign before all of my, so to speak, portfolio is up. I mean, obviously the Poison G is up on Bandcamp, but I mean, how many people are using it realistically? They should, but not a lot of people do. So, if I'm going to be doing that Kickstarter campaign, although I don't have like any hopes for it really, but if I'm going to do it, I want to do it properly. So let's wait a little bit. And in the meantime, so this little game came out a relatively recently. It's $25, which is a bit too high, I think, for what it is, but it's relatively modest. Definitely not like $40 for something like Darkest Dungeon 2, for example, which is completely that game is absolutely not worth the price of admission. 11K reviews on Steam last time I checked, and that's just Steam, right? People obviously buying this game on other platforms as well. Overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. People seem to be very into it. It's very intriguing. So I satisfied my curiosity, and I didn't 100% it, really, because, well, side quests wise, I did, but I didn't unlock the entire like encyclopedia. I suppose I didn't catch all the fish, but yeah, some of the side quests in Dredge, I only finished kind of like after returning to the game after not playing it for about a week or two, because there are essentially two types of side quests. I would say those that more or less complete themselves, and those that are just like a torture to complete. And the latter ones, the two of them actually, are the ones that I kind of skipped, I suppose, on. Although one of them was pretty easy. I just didn't feel like looking into what is required to complete it. I thought, oh, that quest is gonna have me, look for fishes and stuff. And one thing with Dredge is that the like highest tier of fish, quote unquote highest tier of fish, the nightmarish tier of fish that you can find that exists on the like either hadal or abyssal depth. That fish like rots almost immediately as you catch it. So I was like, well, so that particular quest is gonna have me, like hunting for something on the other side of the map, and then I'm gonna have to rush back here, and I just didn't feel like dealing with it. But it turned out to be much easier and user friendly. So I put probably slightly over 10 hours into the game. I got both endings, and I don't know, maybe even noticeably more than 10 hours. I actually have not checked, and now I'm recording this video. I'm not going to. I got both endings, and where I kind of naturally arrived to my like personal, quote unquote, having enough with this game. It was the in-game day 75. That was before I kind of came back to, finish some of the stuff that I'm like, oh, come on, I want to play a little bit more, and there's technically more stuff to do. So, yeah, but initially I kind of, I was, okay, I finished the game and got both endings. That was day 75. If you really wanted to, after completing the game and most of the non-game disruptive side quests, like the side quests that get more or less like naturally completed as you play the game, you could probably get another 3, potentially even 5 more hours out of it. Although by then you will probably have a fully upgraded boat, and completing objectives and earning money becomes slightly less fun because you have nothing to spend the money on. But I honestly wanted just a little bit more after I finished the game. Well, a few weeks after I finished the game, I wanted a little bit more time with it because it's kind of a fun game. And I did want to not really fully upgrade my boat, because it was fully upgraded, I just kind of like set a goal for myself to fully unlock all research, which is what you do to like unlock new equipment for purchase for your boat. And I didn't want to do any of the like boring side quests, although there were only 2 left. I ended up completing them. But I thought I'm just going to like, earn some money and buy the currency that's required to unlocking research. And hey, that in and of itself was also fun. But I also ended up completing the side quests in the process. So I had fun. This is a relatively small game, but it is reasonably satisfying, reasonably priced. It is very smartly built. It looks fine, and the performance is on freaking steroids. Dude, this game flies on my potato at native ultra wide resolution, full speed of my monitor, which is only 100 hertz, but not a lot of games can actually run at 100 FPS, even on like lowest settings.
And lowered resolution.
On my potato. And I don't even need to go like true widescreen to get that performance.
I meant to say full screen, of course, not widescreen.
The sheer fact that this is a Unity game with the dedicated full screen mode is actually applaudable. Going full screen can be a little bit not working in Unity. So a lot of developers just kind of like give up on it and go with borderless full screen only as like a full screen mode for the game. As a bit of a developer myself, if I say so myself, I should note that Dredge runs exactly how a game that looks like Dredge should run. So in the perfect world, it wouldn't have gotten any awards for that. Unfortunately, we live in a world where almost every game, no matter how small, is unoptimized to all hell. Darkest Dungeon 2, Risk of Rain 2, Breath of the Wild 2, all were made with being played on an overspec'd PC in mind. So the devs most of the time get so lazy about optimizing their games, they on occasion actually achieve the impossible. It takes legitimate talent to make a game in Unity that looks like, say, Risk of Rain 2 to run as badly as Risk of Rain 2 does. Darkest Dungeon 2, Risk of Rain 2, and Dredge were all made in Unity, and only Dredge runs in accordance, with the type of game it is and its graphics. To achieve that in Unity, pretty much all you need is to just not treat your build as dumping grounds for everything on the Unity asset store. My potato and I, we are really sensitive to dirty, nasty, bloated codes. Dredge, as far as 3D indie games, is as clean as it gets. Firm, manly handshakes to you, Mr. Dredge. Firm handshakes to you. So that's the first impression I got from the game. Without even playing it for real, I'm already impressed on like a philosophical level. I already madly respect the developer. So what is Dredge? Well, I'll tell you what. It's not a game about fishing. For reasons unknown to me, the fishing/dredging minigame it has, in all its alterations, has got to be the worst fishing minigame in the history of video games. Now, this should finally earn Dredge some awards, I think, being technically a game about fishing and all, I mean, it's on the screen. You can see for yourself. This is all there is to it. This is like sub-mobile design. There are a couple of variants of this thing, yeah, but they don't feel any different. Now, luckily, Dredge is not a game about fishing. Fishing, in fact, at one point you can almost completely automate. You would still have to do it manually for like quest-related stuff, as well as dredging for items, of course. Dredging cannot be automated. You cannot catch like items from the bottom of the ocean in your net, unfortunately. But at least when you can just focus on those like must do manually fishing things, the game does become much more enjoyable. Because fishing manually sucks. Even when you fully upgrade the boat, there's just not enough space in the cargo to fish for more than a minute before you're full and have to go back to sell everything. And if you don't do that, the fish will either rot or the fucking seagulls will attack you and steal your fish. And there's nothing you can do about that. So you quickly learn to basically not fish at all when you are mid doing something else. Because it's just pointless. And a dedicated fishing trip only takes a minute before the cargo is full. Okay, how many trips like that do you think you will do before it gets boring? And you really need all the cargo space you have at the beginning of the game, because the components for upgrading the boat take up a lot of space, and you really need a lot of those. However, you will soon discover that there are crab traps that you can just have an unlimited amount of everywhere, and things in the trap don't rot and cannot be stolen. And later you can just like hang a net behind your boat that will just automatically catch fish for you. And fish in the net, again, doesn't spoil because it's in the water, and also doesn't take up space in the cargo. It has like its own inventory. It's its own cargo. Now, that's my kind of fishing. So again, what is Dredge? Essentially, it's like an open world boat segment of Beyond Good and Evil, with more things to do on the boat, though, than in Beyond Good and Evil. You have this sandbox water world. It's a bit Lovecraftian, and you are the fisherman. You have the main quest that will take you to every corner of the map, and along the way you will complete various objectives, either as part of the main quest or as side quests, or just when pursuing goals you set for yourself. Say, I want a lot of money because I want upgrades, and then you farm octopuses for 30 minutes while listening to Review Tech USA talking about DSP. I don't know if you know this about me, but I love when a sandbox game allows you to set your own goals, like /priorities, /TDs, whatever you want to call them, and then to just allows you to just go and do them without cock blocking you with like story progression or level thresholds. For the most part, Dredge has none of that. It always feels like you are free to do whatever you feel like doing at the moment. You are in control. Ultimately, the game is about exploration. One of my favorite games ever is all about exploration, Subnautica. Do you see where I'm kind of going with this? I kind of like Dredge. Okay, but what do you explore for? Technically, to follow the main quest, of course, but who cares about that? You explore because you can, because it's out there. What is it? You don't know. But you will need a bigger boat to find out. That's the story. So priority number one, you explore what you can because you want a bigger boat. Bigger for all the things you can imagine. Well, maybe not all of them, but all of the basic ones. Bigger cargo, space, whatever, bigger engine, lights, more lights, bigger net, a better one, a better rod, fishing one. Nets and rods also differ in what like environment they can be used in, so you will rather need better, more versatile ones and not just bigger ones. And then, of course, engines, lights, nets, and rods themselves, once your boat is big enough and ready for them, need to be researched and bought. That, in my opinion, is what Dredge is all about. Exploring so you can upgrade yourself to explore faster, deeper, and more interesting things, and do it for longer without having to like constantly going to a port to like sell stuff, and also exploring stuff without dying. That's a good incentive for upgrading. Some people on Steam seem to be misidentifying Dredge as one of those games about farming resources in order to farm resources more effectively. That's just the economy part of the game. It's like a subsystem of it, and it becomes automated once you get a net anyways. Dredge is not a very big nor a very complicated game. In fact, there is barely enough game in it to justify playing it on PC and not mobile. It doesn't take long to do like anything. If you are under the impression that all there is to it is just like fishing to make money, to get better tools for fishing, I encourage you to invest into engines. Drop a few crab traps near the dock you're at and just go follow the main quests. Just do it during daytime. And yeah, right, the night mechanic. The horror. So essentially, when the sun goes down, you better find a place to dock unless you are being very careful or you are in a non-official safe area, like the space between the first two docks, or, spoiler alert, the Stellar Basin area. If you are docked, you're completely safe, and you can skip time until like sunrise. If you are close to a dock, you are probably safe as well. If you are in the open waters, however, well, first of all, good luck seeing anything, even with powerful lights installed, which I didn't even do at one point because they just take up space that, otherwise can be used as cargo space. Even with powerful lights, you can only see in a very narrow cone in front of the boat. It's just not very fun to navigate like that. And it's not, the cone does not extend particularly, far ahead. You will need at least some lights to do anything in the dark, however. You see literally nothing without them. And if you don't see where you're going in the dark, the game spawns magical Cthulhu rocks right in front of you after it gets dark. And it's very easy to bump into them, and taking damage in Dredge is not fun, and can in fact even be infuriating. At the start of the game, you can only take 2 hits before the third one finishes you off. But even when you start upgrading yourself out of that severe limitation, one mechanic always stays. You lose random cargo slots, like the inventory slots, right? Every time you take damage. In other words, the inventory slots become damaged and like inactive until you go to a dock and repair the ship. And of course, if any cargo or any part of any cargo is occupying a cargo slot, when it gets damaged, you lose that cargo, like the entirety of it. It doesn't just like get relocated to, maybe if you have enough free space in your cargo, it doesn't just get like relocated somewhere. No, if the slot is damaged, you lose that thing. The easiest way to get damaged or completely wrecked in Dredge is, of course, during nighttime. And it can even be dangerous after you fully upgrade the boat, actually, especially if you don't have the lights on. And of course, if you must know, there be monsters in Dredge. Pretty much all of them come out at night. There are a few, like, not really monsters, more like events that can happen to you during the day, but 99% of the, like, daytime waters, if not completely safe, are at least predictably, like, navigatable. Nighttime can be very chaotic, in addition to being completely unnavigatable due to you not seeing anything. And it's not a very fun place for a small boat. There's not a crazy number of different enemies, actually, but they can be very concentrated and easily combo you to death in some places. At the start of the game, you can't really defend yourself against its scary, cartoony horrors. You're not very capable of outrunning most of them either. At night, you don't even really see where you're going, And unfortunately, not all monsters will leave you alone after like hitting you once. So you can be doomed sometimes when you encounter something you cannot outrun. And that is what makes story progression really satisfying in Dredge. After completing steps of the main quest, you get really game-changing abilities. Magical ones, essentially. I don't even know if I should spoil them. Maybe I shouldn't, but you can probably see a few of them used in this video, though. Sorry. It's really satisfying unlocking them, and they complement you upgrading the boat really well because you're not only getting like bigger and stronger, the gameplay becomes more complex the more you play, which sort of helps with keeping things, fresh and not rotting. Haha. Saying all that pretty much implies something, but I will state it anyway. The game doesn't really have challenge as much as it has danger. And it's a reverse progression for danger. The longer you play, the less dangerous the world is for you. Except for the last biome that is just so unwelcoming. Oof. I don't think there is such a thing as getting good at Dredge. There are, however, things about the gameplay that you improve in, or maybe even like discover techy things. Plus, you get new abilities, of course, so while the game essentially becomes easier the more you play it, it also becomes more varied, more open, more free for you to approach situations your way. But yeah, finishing the game is not really a question of getting good at anything or overcoming a challenge hidden somewhere in the game. Finishing Dredge, like 100%ing it, in fact, is only a question of time. If you launch Dredge seeking thrilling gameplay filled with challenges to overcome and complicated, or any for that matter, mechanics to master, you should consider adjusting your expectations and look for those things elsewhere. But still play Dredge, just not for those reasons. One thing that really grinds my gears about Dredge is related to how abilities are used. There is only one button for all of them, and you switch between them with a radial menu. So you can only have one ability equipped at the time. That means in order to turn the headlights on and off, for example, you need to switch the ability that you currently have that is probably really important for you to have like a shortcut for, maybe because it's related to movement or it is related to your ability to defend yourself. You switch from that to the light ability, you flick the lights on and then you have to switch back. Same thing goes for the net. You cannot just lower it with a shortcut without switching to it and then having to switch back. You will sometimes forget to lower it because of that. You will sometimes die because you didn't have a certain ability equipped because you forgot to switch to something, either defensive or evasive, after switching to like the fucking lights. Dear Dredge developer, there are more buttons on the controller, let alone a computer keyboard, than your game is using. Please, next time you make a game, consider using all of the buttons before binding 10 abilities to the same one. I know. I'm a veteran gamer and a brilliant game designer and stupidly talented musician. Not everyone is as smart, as wise, and as talented as I am. But my services are available. You cannot just not use them when you have the option and then be all sad face about not having enough wisdoms and smarts to apply to your game. Like using buttons on the controller for things. So, despite what some people might imply, Dredge is not a horror game. It's not scary or anything, but it can get a little tense sometimes. Usually when you're lost in a very dense fog and complete darkness. But I suppose it would be fair to say that the game is horror themed and like Lovecraft inspired, of course. So is the game good at conveying all of that? Well, I should start by saying that I'm not terribly into how the game looks, but it doesn't offend or depress me, unlike most cel-shaded graphics these days. And Killer 7 is one of my favorite games of all time. And yes, the game is not scary, probably mostly, partially, whatever, one of those things, because of how basic and cartoony it looks. But I think I know the true goal behind these graphics, and I think the goal was achieved masterfully. I think the goal was to make the game fully within the limited pool of available to the developer styles, really, due to limited resources the developer had, which, those limitations probably included things like lack of a big PP 3D artist, for example. So we need to make the game with all these budgetary and artistic, pretty much, limitations, but still make it look like we're going for a certain minimalistic style with like this artistic decision. And the game doesn't look this way literally just because we cannot afford it to look any other way. It's one thing to make something low poly. It's a different story to sell that low poly as your intention and not just the extension of your budget, because it's always budget. But you always have to make it feel and work like you wouldn't have went for something else, even with all the money in the world. No, this is my artistic choice, which it isn't, but you need to sell it like one. And I think it does work in Dredge. Its art style does feel intentional, and it flies in terms of performance. It would probably go all the way to 120 FPS if it was on mobile. Well, maybe not on like 10-year-old mobile, so maybe not on the Switch, but all the other phones, it would probably do it. I should probably say a few things about the music and the sound design. I got bored of music after a few hours and I turned it off. I'm sorry. It's not bad. It's just not my jam. I don't do music like that. Does it convey the atmosphere of horror and sadness? Yes, especially sadness. That's why it got me so bored. Sound design is good. It fits the game well. I noticed a few things I would have improved, but that can be said about literally anything, including my perfect personality. The last horror-related thing is the story, and my definitive opinion on it is that there is pretty much no story until the very end. So don't bother looking for one. Just enjoy the game, really. Just enjoy the ride or the floating. And getting the second ending was okay and fun and kind of interesting, but I accidentally did almost all of the steps needed for the ending when I was just organically playing the game. Also, the second ending is technically the good one, which for Lovecraftian themes means it's the lame one. But getting it was kind of cool. It is really inspiring how such a small and minimalistic piece of game got such a big attention and such a positive reception. It is perfect for Steam Deck or for streaming to your phone if your network is good and your phone is properly handhelded up with something like Razer Kishi or Backbone. Hopefully there will be a native mobile version too one day. I like Dredge quite a lot for what it is. It's not the second coming of Jesus, but it's a really good small game. And you will like it too, probably, at least according to how everyone seems to be very fond of it. It is definitely a game that is kind of like difficult to hate because of how clean and straightforward it is. It is a very honest game. There is not a lot of BS in it. But at the same time, there isn't really a lot of game in it either. Most of its mechanics are like baby's first game design type of deal. And maybe that's where the genius lies with this game. That's why so many people like it. Because people in 2023 are brain dead. You get it? I'm so much fun.